South Florida, the recovery capital of the world. Not only are you going to meet an amazing guy with an amazing story, but somebody who's dedicated his life to giving back, advocacy, making a difference in the lives of others. You're about to meet a good friend, RJ.
My addiction was hell. It was growing up a Catholic, God-fearing kid. I'm a recovering Catholic now, so for 10 years I had 9 years perfect attendance in high school or in middle school. So that's the only God I knew, so I was always feared of a higher power. So I was always left to my own devices. My addiction was, it wasn't the losing materialistic things or being homeless or all the things I've done in the street in order to get that void filled by a drink or a drug. It was when I was spiritually bankrupt and emotionally bankrupt that my goal at the end of the day was to not, make it. I wanted to die, and I tried every way I could to, and just couldn't get to it.
Oh, it got bad. At one point, we were in Walmart, and he stole, and right in front of me, and then laughed at me when we got to the car, and he choked me in the car. That's when I said, it's something serious is going on here.
My first experience with RJ or his family were when he was coming out of his treatment. So, he'd already made the decision to somewhat, make the right decision to come into recovery. His mother called me and said, when you kick my son out, could you please call me before you put him on the street? Which was, I remember this because I'd never actually had a mother call me ahead of time and tell me this. I was like, wow, what am I getting myself into taking this client, discharging from the treatment center we work with. So sure enough, the day before he was supposed to discharge, he got kicked out. So he was homeless for, a little bit of time before we could go run up and grab him. Turned out to be a good kid, but I don't know if he was quite ready to be in a recovery residence.
It progressed, yeah. It was, I've been through a lot with, being on my own at 16 years old. I ran away, I dropped out of high school. So I kind of always I was in that survival mode of what's next. And then it became I fell in love with heroin. I fell in love with the feeling of not feeling. I was desperate to not have to feel any emotions from the traumas of my childhood to, being a firefighter and the traumas I had when I saw that stuff and, witnessing, shootings, stabbings, murders, and stuff like that I wasn't allowed to talk about. All that stuff suppressed, and after years and years and years, it took more and more drugs, which at that point was a solution, but ultimately became a symptom. It was a symptom of my thinking. So for me, this disease is a mental disease. It has nothing to do with the drink or drug. Like Steve mentioned, I was kicked out of my last treatment center, which was my 27th treatment center, for trying to get with a girl. I was completely sober. So that's when I realized, being homeless in South Florida, 1,000 miles from home, sober, that it had nothing to do with the drink and the drug. It was my actions and my thought process and the way I, pursued what I thought was the next right thing, which was completely screwed, and it had to change.
So we think back to some of the memories we had when we were kids. It's good, bad, but as we get older and addiction finds us, the memories get worse, the memories get to become those memories we wish we never had. And then not just for us, but our children, our families, everyone's affected in addiction. And for a good friend of mine, RJ, that's really true.
It got really bad at the end. My last use was an attempted overdose. It happened. I wrote letters to my kids and my family saying goodbye, and I did overdose, and it just happened. God showed up, and when I went out, my foot hit the gas pedal of the truck I was living in, and right across the street was a treatment center where the nurses heard my truck blaring, and they found me in there. They brought me back to life. I was in the ICU in Penn State with liver failure. I found out then I had Hep C, and I had acute Hep C, and I was told that, you're going to die. And even then, at that moment, I was still, what can I do to get high? Laying in there knowing I was going to die, and I was happy about it. That was the last use I had. And again, being that guy who feared God, something happened to me, and I got on my knees one night, and I said, I don't know who you are, what you do, but I need help. I can't die, so give me another option. and I'll take it this time, and I'll run with it. And that next day, the therapist told me, you know, you have an option to go to South Florida and get sober and go to a treatment center that's long-term. And I came down with a bag and an insurance card that didn't work. So, and a gift of desperation, which I didn't really grab onto and take advantage of until I was a few months into it. But thank God for that gift of desperation, because I still hold on to that every day.
From what I understood, it was, you know, multiple treatment centers, multiple halfway houses before he finally get it. So RJ's wasn't just the perfect, you know, scenario of someone coming into recovery, you know, the first time they're exposed to it, that they just get it and they do the right thing. You know, he had to bump his head a few times along the way, but he finally found a place where, you know, we love on him. We're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, and, you know, we tried to move forward with, once he finally got serious, then he was really serious about his recovery, and proof's in the pudding now. I mean, as far as he's come, it's amazing.
Actually, there were times I honestly had it set in my head we were going to be burying him. If the phone would ring after 9 o'clock, that was my first thought. He's dead. You know, and I would pray for God to just get me through whatever was going to happen, because I never knew. As much as we'd want him to be clean, and as much as we thought he was good at getting over on us and letting us think everything was going okay. What's important to me now is where he's at today. And that's being a great man and giving back to people who need it.
Recovery for me is nothing materialistic. It's that feeling I have on a constant basis of gratitude. I'm a father today. I'm a husband that is loyal and faithful to his wife, which is a big step for me. We have our own house, but it's that feeling that I'm still humble to something that's greater than I am. You know, whether it be God, Jesus, whatever you want to call him, I don't have a name for him, but I know it's something, and I know it's better than me. And I know without it, I'll go back to my own devices and I'll be back on the street, you know, in no time. So recovery to me is no longer a hopeless state of mind. And I have hope.
You know, the disease of addiction is lifelong, according to some people. You're going to be an addict the rest of your life for some people. Not everyone agrees, but recovery is something that you want to last the rest of your life. But it's not something that you can take for granted. Complacency can never be a part of recovery. Recovery is work, recovery is lifelong, and so is the commitment to recovery. I'm Michael DeLeon. We'll see you on the next episode of On the Road to Recovery.